Hey, my name's James Nicholson. I hope you guys are well. Inflation data's in. It's down. What does that mean for property investors? What does that mean for homeowners? And everybody else? We're going to cover all of that in a detailed video right now. So before we jump into this video, do me a quick favour. Make sure if you haven't done already that you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification. Also, we're trying to get 100,000 views this month. We're well on our way. And how you can help us is by smashing that like button. Go on, do it right now. Smash the like button. That really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. It'll take you 2 seconds and help us get some more views. So, what is going on with inflation? So, inflation has been a real difficult situation for a lot of people in the last few years. In fact, it's been going on, I don't know, it feels like forever, a couple of years. And I first noticed people even talking about it when I was doing some renovations 2.5 years ago. So during the pandemic, people were saying timber was getting really expensive and we had difficulty getting plaster. I remember plaster, a bag of plaster is normally around £10. That was getting sold on eBay for £100 because plasterers just couldn't get stuff. They were queuing outside Wickes and all these other shops waiting for stuff to come in. Some people were taking the mick and just putting it on plaster on eBay and stuff, and people were buying it because they needed to just get their jobs done. So that was the first time I started hearing about the term inflation in this current climate, and it was really been a difficult scenario. So today's data has come out and it's as we expected. So we had last month inflation of 7.9%. And so that's dropped, right? Which is good, is what we were expecting. But sometimes we've been expecting a drop and we didn't get it. We did this time and we got it exactly what the analysts were expecting, which was 6.8%. So that's a 1.1% drop in a month. Sounds good. So the news coming out of this is actually not as positive than you might think. Inflation is going down, but that still means that stuff's getting more expensive, but just slower. So the stuff that you've had that was going up 11% this year, that's still getting more expensive this year. And it's unlikely, not impossible, but it's unlikely that these prices will ever drop down. For that to happen, you need something called deflation. We're just starting to see deflation in China, and that's a big worry for the world economy. But I'm not sure if that will follow over here. It could. But I think more likely prices will stay high, and what we need is them to stop rising. So inflation peaked in October, and so last October inflation was 11.1%. So we're a big drop from that, but we're not doing very well compared to other countries. America is around 3% inflation. Most of the EU is around 5%. And one that I've been doing a lot of reading up on in the last week is Spain. So Spain have got their inflation down to 1.9%. So what have they done that we haven't done? Because clearly it's not helping. So in Spain, like us, the biggest cost of increase, one of them is being food. And so we've seen that. You hear about the cost of eggs and flour. My girlfriend has a baking business, so she's definitely aware of the costs that you have increased in her baking business for sure. And so, yeah, we're seeing that inflation on food has been really high. Some categories of food have been significantly higher than others. And so some of that was driven by energy costs. So energy costs are a big cost of producing food, but others were difficulty to get stuff, seasonality, different problems with weather, and all sorts of things. And obviously the war in Ukraine, a load of grain comes from there for a lot of the world. So what did Spain do about it? Well, Spain made it so all food was VAT free. I think that was a good move. And looking at all the different solutions that different countries have had around the world, it seems to be the best one. The food is out of control. That impacts poorer people. So food going up impacts poorer people more than other stuff. If you're on the dole and you're getting your rent paid for, That's all going to get dealt with. The council will deal with that, whether the rent goes up or not. It doesn't impact you massively. But the food that you buy is hitting you really, really, really hard. And so reading this, I think this is one of the best solutions that I've seen. I think the UK government should reduce or take off VAT on food. I think Spain have absolutely got that right, and that's massively helped with their inflation. The other thing is they didn't let the energy companies take the mick. They had a real hard conversation with them and made rules that their energy companies didn't profit like ours have. I mean, we've got record energy profits for the companies in the UK. It's not quite right when we're going through this stuff, is it? So what are the key things with inflation this month that we have got to discuss? Well, one of the biggest is air travel. So air travel is hitting the figures. It's up 29%. Now that's good because you don't have to travel on a plane, right? And so your holiday might be significantly more expensive this year than it was the year before, but no one's forcing you to go on the plane. Of course, there's sometimes where you have to go and see family for weddings and stuff like that. But it means that it's kind of a discretionary spend, isn't it? So people can easily cut back on their air travel, and that will help them in that. They don't need air travel, most people, on a day-to-day basis in order to live. So air travel is up 29%, so that's hitting our figures massively. The main reason the inflation dropped this month was energy. So energy was down significantly. That's really important, and that's something that's had a big impact on this month's inflation. But some energy costs have started going up again, so that's something we've got to keep an eye on going forward. Is that going to be a problem moving forward? It's definitely something to watch. Now, this is the bigger problem. I made a video on this yesterday. 6,000 people watched this yesterday, which is crazy. One of our biggest videos on the channel to date. And this is wages. Now, this one annoys me, and I'll explain why. So, wages are up 7.8% in the private sector. Now, some of you watching this will say, I haven't had a pay rise, and that might be true. But on average, in the private sector, wages are up 7.8%. Now, unemployment has increased. So we've gone from 4% to 4.2% this month. So unemployment, unfortunately, is rising, which is not good for those people that now don't have work. But with the wages going up, and they're actually higher now than the inflation figure, this is where the Bank of England might come in with some real hard interest rate rises, and that's not what we want to see. And I made a video recently about how I feel interest rate rises are actually worse for us longer term than inflation, because inflation, while the government said it was transitory, it wasn't. It's stuck around, it's sticky, it might take a while longer to get rid of. There are people now that are having a choice. They've come off the loan. They've got a high interest rate faced in front of them. They've got to make the decision, do they now fix for 2 years or 5 years? Regardless of what they pick, they're locking that higher price in for them for at least 2 years as a minimum, but potentially as much as 5 years. That's a problem. Inflation will be done in 5 years for sure. And so they still could have that impact from that higher interest rate that they've secured. And so wages is now the thing to watch. Inflation's coming down, but wages is more. The Bank of England's already put statements out about this weekend. Wages is the thing that they're focused on. It's utter shambles. I mean, why shouldn't people be able to get a pay rise when they've been hit so hard for 2, 3, 4, 5 years with the pandemic now? It's been a prolonged period of time. People need to earn more money, but what we're saying is if wages continue to go up, we're going to hit you even harder with interest rate rises. Now, some people will watch this and they'll say, well, interest rates going up doesn't impact me, but it will. And what we're starting to see now, which is another thing that I want to cover here that they've talked about today, is rents. Rents are included in the inflation data. Mortgage payments aren't. And if you looked at it with mortgage payments in, you're going to see a way worse scenario than we actually have right now. But rents are included, and rents are going up at record rates at the moment. This is something that is not good for everyone. I mean, if you take someone's rent from 500 quid to 700 quid, plus they've got their energy going up, plus the food's gone up, and we're saying that we want, we want to stop them getting pay rises, this is going to be a really tough time for people for the next few years. And so wage data, if you're looking at the data, the wage data is the one that you want to keep an eye on, because that's where the Bank of England has the concern. Inflation is coming down, that's good. Even with it going down as it is, we'll probably have at least one more interest rate rise. But with the wages going up, that means we could be in for 2 or 3 more interest rate rises. And that could change next week, right? That could change next week again. This is a very, very fast moving market. So what do you think on today's data? Where do you think we're ultimately going to end up? The government wants us to get to 5% by Christmas, which is kind of crazy when other countries like Spain have already seen the back of their inflation. Do you feel that the government has any policies that are helping push this inflation? I'm struggling to see them. I'd love you to highlight some that I'm maybe blinkered to and not paying attention to, but I really can't see anything that the government's doing that is really helping with inflation. Looking at the Spanish thing, I truly believe now off the back of that, VAT on food should be scrapped at least for 6 months or a year. That, I believe, would help a lot of people that need it right now and would clearly make a big difference very, very quickly. Let me know your thoughts and comments. Do like the video, guys. As I said, we want to get 100,000 views this month. So how can you help? Go and watch this video right here.